Okay, so we're recording now. Okay, great. So, so I'd love to just kind of kick things off with Jason and just welcome him as a co-host to this webinar. And Jason, thank you for joining us to kind of be our Gatsby guide. I'm going to kind of be leading the Cosmic JS end of things, but he is your Gatsby expert. And Jason, do you have anything you'd like to kind of say as an intro off the top before I jump into a screen share? Oh, you know what? Let me go ahead and unmute all. I'm sorry about that. All right, Jason, sorry, go ahead.
Hey, no, nothing to add. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Great, awesome. So I'll go ahead and get things kicked off with sharing my screen here. So, okay. So share. All right, so yeah, we're getting a downpour right now. We're based out of Dallas. We're fully remote, but it's so actually you're joining me in my home office. So this is a nice intimate Halloween webinar. So all right, can everybody see kind of what build for production? So I've got this this paper set up here. And I'd like to, and please chime in. I think everybody is able to speak up. If you can't see, please go ahead and tell me to make the screen bigger. But so just to kind of get things kicked off, I'd like to just kind of talk through just a little bit about localization as it relates to websites and what are the challenges of that, and please feel free, anybody, to kind of jump in. I know that we want to kind of do a little bit of a QA at the end to kind of go over some of the stuff that we talk about. But I mean, this is nice and intimate, so if you do want to be more conversational, I'm okay with kind of talking through a little bit about some of the challenges that maybe other teams are having in this area. Because with Cosmic JS, we've definitely found that users are very interested in localization. In the way that that enables their team to do what they need to do faster and not be bogged down with a lot of engineering work. And so what we found is really the user experience is really important, not just on the front end when you have a visitor visit your website, but also kind of on the SEO on the back end of things, where content needs to be managed really effectively and easily. So kind of both on the front end and on the content management side, it's really crucial to have a good user experience. And then also SEO is really crucial. We see all the time, we go to websites that have like these simple little toggle switches for languages, and that's great for kind of setting your language up dynamically. But as far as having it able to be found via Google search crawlers, it needs to be SEO ready. And so that's the kind of challenge that we found with some of our customers, is they want to have great user experience, they want to have it SEO ready. And so we found with Gatsby, with our starter specifically, we think that we've made some great strides to really satisfy those two areas. So I'm going to go ahead and share this link with everybody. Let me see if we're working. Close this. Can everybody hear me? Okay, so let me go ahead and share this. Does that work? Can you chat? Oh, okay. Is this it? Okay, so maybe this will work. Oh no. Okay. Sorry, I'm getting lost in the app here for a second. Let me see. Oh, you know what? Here, is it up here? Where I can send a link? Oh, here we go. Sorry about that. So basically, okay, so this is the control panel here. Like I said, I'm new to the Zoom webinar, so I just wanted to invite you guys over to the just to kind of this the schedule page, just to see, you know, maybe this could be a good collaborative document for us to kind of show some stuff to each other. If you've got a, you know, any links to really, if you think that some, you know, any links, if you want to add any links below down here, please, by all means, post them there. And I'm going to go ahead and just post this Cosmic.js, this starter. This is what I'm going to be kind of showing everybody. So go ahead and grab it there, just for easy access. Jump in there and get the link. I'll go ahead and if you want to follow along in the code, I'll just kind of you know, go kind of go through the code a little bit, go into the Cosmic.js dashboard, show the CLI off. So as you can see, like we're on to step number 2 for Cosmic.js Gatsby starter. So go ahead and take a, you know, follow the link if you want to follow along in the code. And I'm just going to jump into kind of getting things set up with the CLI. So basically, all right, what I'm going to do here is open up. Okay, open up my terminal, and let's go ahead and let's see. We'll go into. I want to show you really quick what the CLI offers us, because this is where it's a really good starting point for us. So if you go to the Gatsby starter localization GitHub repo, you'll notice that there's kind of a couple of options there to install this, and I'm going to be installing with the CLI. So here's the link to jump into the CLI and kind of get that immediate install. You know, we love kind of these like quick commands to install software. So with npm, you can just get that CLI right in there. You know, we've got our quick commands there for logging in, and then here's kind of the initialization. The local initialization that you can do with the Gatsby starter. Okay, so basically, I'm just going to go kind of step by step into getting the starter set up with the CLI. I'm going to go through the dashboard and kind of show you what that looks like when you translate between, you know, like I was kind of referring to in the intro here, the back end, you know, to the front end. You know, how can we make that as intuitive as possible? And then I'll go into adding a new locale, and then we'll just build for production just to kind of finish things up. But so basically, the CLI makes this starter initialization super easy to do. And if you go to the Cosmic.js website, you'll see we've got. Can everybody see? Okay, please let me know if it needs to be any larger. We good? Okay, so if you go to the Cosmic.js website, cosmicjs.com, I'll go ahead and leave that here too. We'll go ahead and use the starters. Okay, so if you scroll down, you'll see like quick starts. We've got a few of them. We've got a really kind of a simple Gatsby starter. Basically what the localization starter does is it has you know, localization already built in. But it's basically just a simple page application, web app. So let's go ahead and install that. And we'll just go to the repo here and just, all you got to do is just copy and paste these commands. Let me see if I've got something already in here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and remove this just so that we can see what it looks like, kind of going from scratch. All right, so now that this is empty, so we'll do Cosmic init Gatsby starter localization. So I'm already logged in and everything. So when you do use the CLI, it'll prompt you to log in, connect to your account and whatnot. So all you need to do is log in with your email and your password, and then you're logged in to the connected on the CLI, and you'll be able to just init the Gatsby starter localization. And what this asks you to do is basically it'll ask you what bucket you want to use, and if you're a new user, you can probably just say create new bucket, and it just prompts you to add a title, optional slug, optional read key, optional write key. We'll just jump right into it. And so now it's not only downloading the code locally, but also it's installing into my Cosmic.js account all of that demo content that we're going to be playing with in this session. So as it's running all of that stuff, I'm going to go ahead and go into my bucket dashboard. And as you can see, this is the new, see it's 11:11 a.m. Gatsby localization, and all of that has been completed. So now, let's see if I can get these a little bit smaller there. There we go. That might be easier. Okay, now that we can see that this bucket has been installed to my Cosmic.js account, we can kind of go through and look at the dashboard and see kind of how this is laid out. So if you're new to Cosmic.js, the bucket is basically your website, your project, application, whatever kind of main content area to store all of your content. And you can break those down into object types, right? So you have objects within your bucket that are grouped into object types. You have a media area, you have a team area. So all of this stuff is pretty self-explanatory if you go and check out the dashboard. All right, so let's go ahead and fire this bad boy up. CD Gatsby starter localization, and let's do Cosmic develop to run this locally. And please, if you have any notes, go ahead and chime in, or any questions. All right, so now we're running. Oh, do I have you guys muted? You can unmute yourself, I think, right? Can everybody unmute themselves? Yeah, okay, you guys should be good. Okay, so.
I had one question, Tony.
Sure.
When you run Cosmic Develop, what is the difference between running Cosmic Develop and Gatsby Develop?
Great question. Okay, so if you go into your package, let me just open the whole folder up. If you go into the package JSON file, so now we're in we're in our Gatsby localization starter. The way that we've set up the Cosmic develop is that command runs your develop script in the project. And the only difference is that it adds the variable, the environment variable, Cosmic _ bucket. So, so when you're logged in, you basically have this set into your preferences when you select your bucket. And so running Cosmic develop is the exact same thing as running Cosmic bucket Gatsby develop. It just makes it so that you don't have to, you can keep this bucket config kind of as a session in your development process. Does that make sense?
Gotcha.
Okay, so yeah, so basically just, and if you do have a read key or write key on your bucket, it'll also add those. So it's really just for convenience on the Cosmic end of things when you're, and I'm sorry, it's not Gatsby develop, it's npm run develop, it'll run that. And that's kind of globally with all of our starters and all of our projects. This is kind of how it's set up, just so that it's easier config and you can kind of stay within your bucket and not have to worry about adding environment variables and all that stuff. And then it runs it on the same port as well. So you'll notice in the script develop, you'll see that it's a dynamic port, so that we can kind of control that port on the Cosmic end of things, and it's always going to be port 3000 for us. Okay, so if you go to port 3000, and there it is. We've got our Cosmic.js Gatsby starter with localization set up for English and German. Okay, so how is this pulling through that content? So let's go over that good stuff. So we've got kind of these, let's see. we've got two different things happening. We've got kind of a static config happening, and we've got kind of dynamic stuff happening. So I'll go over the static stuff really quick. That's actually in the code in the project. Okay, so for your Gatsby config, and could this change? Could this be more dynamic? Yes, it could. So, this isn't like a hard, fast rule of how this should be handled, but this is kind of how it is handled within the Gatsby starter that we have for localization. So we've got two languages set up. We've got these basically two parameters in there, two properties for slug and name. And let me go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. And like I said, it's connecting to an environment variable for Cosmic bucket. It defaults to our demo stuff. So if you just want to pull down the repo and not log into Cosmic or anything, you can easily do that with just this kind of this bucket that's already set up for as kind of as demo content. So. All right, so now we have kind of, in the site metadata, you can kind of see that there's a few things happening here as well. So like title, nav, and we can go ahead and map those out here, right? So we've got our title, which maps there. We've got our nav, which maps here. We've got our languages, which is actually where this is populated. And that goes into the various components within our Gatsby application, okay? So just kind of going over like maybe general layout stuff, not to get too into the weeds with the code or anything, because that's not my intention as far as this webinar. But I do want to kind of touch onto how the localization is happening specifically. So that's really going to be the main point. If we do want to talk through any of the components or anything like that, I'm sure we can jump into that in Q&A. But for my presentation, it's basically going to be how is it pulling that content into the Gatsby application, and how is that content being managed within Cosmic, and how is it that the localization is being handled dynamically. So, so to kind of jump into that, let's go ahead and look at high level. Let's see, we looked at the config. Let's look at Gatsby Node. So the Gatsby Node, we can go through some of this stuff at a high level. I'm not going to go too much into the weeds, but it's going to default our localization to English. So when you do load the page initially, it'll load the English version, and so that's something that's that can be handled here within this logic. Could this be somewhere else? Obviously, it could, but this is kind of how it does it currently. And then we have kind of these this name spacing of our pages, right? So what was the main concern that we had earlier for localization is that we want to have not only a good user experience, which we can go over that with Gatsby and how it kicks ass for web performance and all of that good stuff on the front end of things, as well as how Cosmic.js makes it easy for content management on the back end. But this SEO problem is a big one because we want to be able to have a static site that has access to all of these dynamic, localized content pages. So the way that this accomplishes that is that if you click through here, go through about context, you'll notice that and that's the not found page. You'll notice that the slug is changing out, with all of this. So on the English end of things, that's good to go. But let's say we wanted to go to a different language. Okay, so now we're in the German version. So I just clicked over to German. You can toggle the languages here, and I go through about. You'll notice the URL is de about contact de contact, but the slug does not change, right? So that's important because in Cosmic.js, the slug is actually the unique identifier. So that's how you kind of connect your pages, your objects with localization, is that the slug remains the same, and then the content becomes localized. So with this, you have home, about, contact in English, and then home, about, contact with the namespaced localized version. Okay? All right, so how is that handled within the Cosmic.js dashboard? Okay, so we're talking about kind of the user experience on this end, what that looks like on the front end, how it handles the SEO, where you can get search crawlers to crawl this namespaced version. And when we build, I'll show you kind of how that gets spit out into the build, into the static site build as well. But how is it handled within the dashboard? Okay, so if we go into this bucket we have set up, we have our pages, object type, and we have our object table. And so all of this is filtered. You can filter by different languages, right? So here's the German, here's the English. And really quick, I want to show you just a little bit about the endpoint and how that's being handled. So if you go to the endpoint, you can just click this API endpoint external link here. You go to the API endpoint, you'll see that what we're doing here is, we're filtering by type is pages, and then the locale is English. So all of this is the English version, right? So as you can see, we have 3 objects here. And then we have all of this is in English. Now, if you wanted to pull through the German version, you go DE, and now you have all of your German content. Okay, so that's kind of how we've handled this localization to make it dynamic based on your locale as a query parameter. Okay, so that's kind of how it works on the back end of things with Gatsby when it's pulling through in this, from our Gatsby source plugin. It's actually using the REST API, and it's doing exactly this. It's just doing, filtering by types and then getting the locale. Okay, so let's say we wanted to, and I think that's where I wanted to leave off for the API stuff. If you do want to kind of browse around some more, you can also check out, we've got, code snippets. So if you do want to play with the localization on at the code level, we've got run kit set up, so you can run some of this pretty easily within the browser. So you can also do just test this stuff out as well here. Locale equals DE, so we get the German version. Okay, so you can run all that stuff here, and it's pretty fun to play with. So we've got also this CLI. You can get objects same way. Set locale as a query parameter, curl, all that good stuff. Okay, so that's basically how you can kind of explore how Cosmic handles the localization at the content level. Okay, so now really quickly, just to kind of show you what it looks like to add a new locale, I'm going to go into the object type settings, and this is where you add and edit localization. So as you can see in the bucket object table, all of this was organized by English, right? Because we've actually set the priority locale to English. So that's kind of where you do that, is in this area. So if we wanted to add a new locale, you simply click select locales. And let's say we wanted to add Spanish. Let's do Spanish. We search for Spanish. Notice that it's also broken down by kind of dialect and region and all that good stuff. So we've got over 400 different locales available for you to add to your application. Okay, so now we've got Spanish selected, and we'll go ahead and select English as the priority locale again. We'll save the object type, and I'll go into the pages and add a few Spanish pages. Okay, so we'll do home, Spanish. And like I said earlier, make sure the slugs are the same. So just a couple notes here. For Cosmic, make sure slugs are the same, because those are the unique identifier. All right, so if we go back here, we say Spanish content, oops, and then we'll click set the locale to Spanish, publish, and we do that 2 more times for contact. Let's make sure we can see that in the title as well. So Spanish contact. So making sure that the slug is the same. So Spanish content, select Spanish, go into add another page, Spanish about. same slug, Spanish content. All right, then we select locale, Spanish, publish. All right, now we're good to go. So we have all of our pages set up with the new locale. We can go click into here, and you'll notice, go straight into the Spanish content there. Now in our code, this is where we need to kind of set the code configs. And like I said, will this change later? It possibly will be able to kind of pull it in dynamically. But for now, I think this is nice to be able to add this one at a time if you need to, and not have it be completely dynamic. But it may change. Okay, so now what we're going to do here is go into our Gatsby config and slug es name Spanish. And so what that should do here, hopefully I can click. All right, so now you see immediately it added this Spanish into our navigation. So now what we can do here is just click into Spanish, and it gave us a 404. Let's try again. Maybe we need to run again. Let's try to run Gatsby develop one more time. Let's see. So it's going to be Cosmic develop for us. And so you notice actually it'll show you exactly what it spits out there. That earlier question that Jason had about what the difference is between Gatsby develop and Cosmic develop is it'll add these environment variables there. So you see those. Okay, so now it's running again. And now here's our Spanish page, just reloaded at the ES namespace. And so now we go to home, about, contact, and then our not found page, which is actually there when we build it. So there you have it. There's another language you can add. So you can add as many as you want there. Now if we do Cosmic build, just to kind of show you what this looks like, I think I do need to do Cosmic _ bucket equals, what was the name of this? Gatsby localization works. Okay, to run Gatsby build, I'm going to go ahead and make sure I have my my environment variable set to connect to the bucket, and I'll run Cosmic build. Gatsby build. All right, so that should be building it into a build folder. All right, so let's see here. Okay, so now we have it set up in our public folder. And what did that do? It actually, if you guys can you see this okay? I don't know if I can't even. Okay, so we can kind of see here what this is doing. Let me, sorry, my dog is going crazy. I want to see if I can zoom in here. Anyways, hopefully you can see what this looks like, but it basically does a build process to spit out the folder, the about, contact, and that's in English, and then it goes into the DE. So you see how it namespace all of that just like brilliantly. So now all of this is static, ready to rock. SEO is good. My dog is going crazy, so maybe I think that's the time he's telling me I need to hand it over to Jason, kind of wrap things up. But this is the this is the grand finale of what makes Gatsby so awesome. Is that it took this really hard problem, made it really easy. When you couple it with Cosmic JS, that simple, intuitive dashboard for handling your localization, it's a really great combination. It satisfies those two important needs with your performance on the front end, and then just your team's performance on managing that content on the back end, and kind of this really great developer experience where you have these this intuitive way of handling the API requests with just a simple query parameter. So that's basically how I'll wrap things up. And it's about 11:30, so nailed exactly 30 minutes of this webinar. So. All right. So thank you guys so much for having me present, and I'd love to kind of tag Jason in and get his thoughts on some more of this this awesomeness that we got cooked up between the two of us.
Sure. Well, there's a couple questions in the chat first. So the first one is, What about content that's specific to a single locale? For example, a product page in the German market that has no English equivalent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great question. So basically how you can handle that is just simply add a page and say just German. Oops, sorry. That's right. So this is basically just the German thing, German page. So it just won't group them. Okay. Does that answer the question?
And does that, so that'll be generated on the Gatsby side, same as anything else? Will it be name based?
Yeah. So let's check that out. Let's try it. So I'll go ahead and see. I think I'm still running Cosmic Bucket. Let me just do this Cosmic Develop. Okay, so what we do there is, we would have to set up the link to go there, but it would just be, basically this.
It would be namespaced, right?
Ah, you're correct, sir. Thank you. Yeah, so let me see. Is it okay? So we're still building, and we're done. Okay, cool. So yeah, easy as that. Just namespace it with whatever that custom slug is for that that locale specific page.
And then the second question was about localizing the names of the languages themselves.
Localizing the names of the languages themselves.
Yeah, so you've got them hard coded in the Gatsby config right now. So yeah. If you wanted to have like English, but then in Spanish have that translated to Inglés, what would the? Yeah. Is there a way to do that in Cosmic?
Great question. So I think that's the next step in this, in saying that this should be more dynamic, right? I would say, let's see, to localize that, that's a really good question. That might be a case for something where you can set up maybe a config or something in here where it's like site settings. Like I know we did this before, Jason, where we were kind of thinking through how to make these more dynamic. And this is kind of where I would see like English. Let me see. I'm kind of thinking about this on the fly, but it's maybe if it was something along the lines of like, let's see. I think site settings would work. Maybe it's like some sort of config like this, or even, I guess you don't even need to make it be dynamic. Maybe if it was some sort of like JSON payload where it's, maybe this makes more sense than if this is like, yeah, maybe it would be in the config. I don't know. I guess there's several ways to tackle that. That's a hard problem though, and that's a good question. How do you best kind of name?
And so in Cosmic, are you able to localize those meta fields?
Let me see here. So where would this be exactly? So
can we just create an object that would be localized the same way as pages and have it be a single field?
Localize the same way as pages and have it be this. Can you walk me through maybe a step-by-step here? So if I make a page or
so this wouldn't be a page. This would be like a meta field, and so we would basically be loading like this is the page, or like these are the settings, and then the setting would be like this is the slug for it, and these are the localized.
Oh, you know what? Absolutely, I like that a lot. So maybe the settings portion. Let's see, new setting is like languages. No, maybe this would be a better way to handle that. If you go into, This is how I would do that. Okay, this is how I do it. The let's see.
Like, could the key be the locale slug and the value be English, and then you would add a locale, and the key would be the locale slug again, and the value would be Inglés, and that would be the Spanish version?
Yeah, like here's totally. So this is just on the fly. So English. This is probably how I would do some, yes, Spanish. I don't know. I think this is how I would do it. German. Or wait a second. So
in this case,
it would be like German English or Spanish English, something.
Yeah.
I don't think this is right though. I'm trying to think through, like, on the back end what would make this easiest, and then on the front end what would be easiest.
So I think this might be one of those ones that maybe you post a follow up on.
Yeah, I think so. Because I'm trying to think through, I'm always thinking through, like, empathetically on the content manager end of things. So if you do kind of, have to create a new page. So a new page, if we, kind of working backwards, I want to, have a setting here that's like, let's see, like, I don't even want to have to manage this stuff, actually. So it really should just be a setting. So let me think about that and do a follow-up, because I don't want to put out an answer that maybe doesn't work very well, because I think it's, I'll take a note to come back with that. And maybe in the follow-up post that we do after we send out the YouTube link, I'll do a follow-up on kind of extending the localization to that, the localization toggle, because I think that's definitely important, right? To be able to do that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Cool. So we'll leave that as is for now. Next.
Cool. So there weren't any additional questions in the chat. Okay. You did a pretty good job of covering everything in the Gatsby setup. So if I guess at this point we can just open it up to any additional questions about Gatsby, how Gatsby works, or the Cosmic JS setup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. If you have any other questions, I'm happy to go over those. I think one of the things, and I love the fact that we've got these, like, landmines, because it definitely means that, like, the work isn't done yet on this. I think this is a big issue, but also what we discussed earlier was the 404 stuff. I think this is another good follow-up one that, Jason and I discussed this about how to handle 404 content localized, right? So if something is just, it's not found, how do you localize this content within Gatsby? And Jason, you had an answer to that I thought was really probably the best way to go with kind of your browser settings, right?
Well, yeah. So when you are handling localization in the browser, typically speaking, the user's browser is going to tell you what language it wants to see. And so when you are initially loading the page, you can check, I believe it's in the navigator settings, you can figure out what the user's preferred language stack is. And so you can actually set, I think it's navigator dot.
Is it capital N?
Like lowercase n.
Okay.
Yeah, navigator dot locale.
To locale string?
No, that's not it. Navigator dot. I can't remember exactly what it is, but in here, let me see if I can find it.
Let's see.
It is languages, navigator.languages, and it's going to return an array. And that array will be the languages that the user prefers, and it will be in order.
There we go.
So languages, the top one, languages, plural, will give you the array.
Gotcha.
And so Yeah, so what you can see here is that you've basically set a preference order. If the site offers a US version of English, I want that. Otherwise, I want the generic English version. Otherwise, in your case, I'll take French.
Callbacks, gotcha. How did
So
Google must have known that I took French in high school?
maybe you can set it in your Chrome settings,
Gotcha.
and so it's a way that, so typically speaking, when you're looking at a site, a lot of times people will use geolocation. They'll say, well, you're in Italy, so you must want Italian, which is actually really difficult if you're traveling, because a lot of sites that you use regularly, like Google, will suddenly be in the wrong language. And it's super frustrating as a user. So if you want to have a good user experience, the best thing to do is assume that the users know what they want. Don't try to make assumptions on their behalf. So when you're talking about a custom 404 page, or really any page, if you want to make that initial decision, check the navigator to see if there are settings. If they've chosen a setting, then serve them the language that you have that matches their preference. If they haven't, then you can fall back to geolocation. And if the geolocation fails to give you a language that you use, then fall back to your default and give them a toggle. But it's kind of a progressive enhancement in that way, where you're able to try to do the thing they want, and then assuming if you have that language, obviously, then you would want to localize for that.
Yeah, definitely. That seems like the best way to go to make sure that you get that seamless localized experience, even on those 404 pages.
And you could make that decision using this case with when you hit your home page, you could do a check to see if there's a like in this case, if somebody had selected German as their preferred language, you could say, "Oh, I do have German. Let me redirect to the German homepage." So even with these namespaced locales, you can still make that call. And then if somebody were to opt out of it by clicking back to English, you could just store in local storage or as a cookie that they've chosen a certain language on the site, and therefore respect that. So typically the way to look at it would be use site specific settings, which are going to be in local storage or cookies. And assuming those aren't set, so for a first time visitor, that's not going to be set. Use the browser settings. If the browser settings don't give you what you need, you can fall back to geolocation, or you can just fall back to your default language and then let them make a selection.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. Yeah, that was a bear trap that we didn't jump into, but we kind of opted in for. so lots of stuff to get done on this, and I think this is kind of the challenge, is making sure that the user gets the best experience possible on that international level, because everybody is an international company, and so it's important to have all of this set up for all of your users all over the world. So I'm really excited about the future of Cosmic.js and Gatsby, and thanks for joining us on this first webinar, joining forces. Thank you so much, Jason. Honored to have you here with us to kind of go over some of this the stuff that you guys are working on at Gatsby, and really excited to continue building stuff on Cosmic with the Gatsby community in mind. We've got a lot of folks who are jumping into it, and we're really excited to continue to continue to contribute to the community as well. So thank you everybody for coming. It's about 11:45. So if you have any other questions, we'll gladly take them, or if you want to take them offline, we're on Slack. If you go to cosmicjs.com/community, we'll be happy to connect with you guys there. So you can just join us on Slack. And if you have any other follow-up questions, I'm happy to answer those on a one-on-one basis. Any direct messages, I'm happy to connect and chat. So thank you, everyone. We'll have a follow-up with YouTube links and all that good stuff in the next few days. So happy Halloween, and thank you, Jason. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks again for having me.
All right, guys. See you later.